Saying good morning to those of you listening to, of course, Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9. How are you doing this morning? Hope you had a great weekend. Those of you who are viewing us this morning via GBN TV, whether it's Channel 7, Channel 11, Channel 20, good morning. Our social media audience, good morning to you also. Facebook page, YouTube channel, of course, whether it's the GBN's web page, good morning also. And welcome to this edition of To The Point. I'm your host, GT. Let me say good morning to Mr. Sylvan McIntyre. Nice to have you back this morning, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, we had another Monday off last week with Monday holiday.
Right. So good morning to you, GT. And as you mentioned, with Monday, we'll have maybe our viewers and listeners might chime in on this. Whether or not when we lose our Monday, that we can have a shortened week and start the Monday on the Tuesday. so either we can get our program.
That could be considered.
Tell us coming maybe on the holiday if we could, or the Tuesday becomes the Monday, and we reverse the programs down to the bottom of the week, and so the Friday become very active, because most time on Fridays I think you have like open lines.
Yeah, most Fridays.
We have a holiday on Monday. Yeah, because people look forward to our program, GT.
I know. But you know, most of the other days of the week are also already booked already. Yeah. You know, so I have like opposition on Tuesdays, government on Wednesdays. I have the police on Thursdays. So the Friday is open. So maybe if we miss on Monday, we probably could do a Friday. You never know. If the availability of you.
It happened once ever so often. So when maybe it happened like we knew it was with Monday. Well, as a matter of fact, we told the listeners and viewers that we were going to be coming back to Monday, and we were not conscious that Monday was
going to be a holiday. Somehow it slipped me also.
But it's good to be here.
Yep.
Let me say, it's really my pleasure to be back on the air, and for those of you who've been anxiously awaiting us for this program, those of you who've been calling in and meeting us and saying, good program, we're learning a lot, we're following you, and those who have been making contribution that strengthens the program, strengthen my knowledge and help me to learn a bit more. I want to say a special thank you. I want to say some special shout out. GT, this morning we have some things to thank the general public for.
Yeah, tell me.
But first, I want to say happy birthday to my adopted mom. She's going to be tomorrow.
All right.
Auntie Louise.
All right.
I wish you all the best. You know, she's one of the persons, if she could beat you anytime, she would beat you for doing the right thing.
Even at the age you're at.
Even at that age. And then my sister, Auntie Pat, good morning to you. In addition, I want to shout out Pastor and Sister King. They've been really good support. Sister King gives me the verbal. Pastor King, I'm sure, prays for me, and they made a contribution towards that. And you followers, I have one strong ardent follower in Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Every time that lady, she either calls in, she either give a thumbs up or she gives a comment, I want to say pleasant good morning to you and thank you. And for those of you who've been really giving us that kind of a support, and those of you who keep us in check and in line, we want to say thank you.
All right.
So this week, it's quite a bit we would like to speak about. We know it's the hurricane season just about to happen.
Yes.
We've seen indication of some things to happen, and we're going to speak about the weather and the change and what people should have expected over Saturday and Sunday and did not quite happen. We'll speak about that.
I heard someone said, I was anticipating that and they cannot throw me off. Something that throw you off, right? Yes. You're anticipating something and it didn't happen.
Right.
But it was all good still.
So the meat of today's program, we will be speaking about how to prepare yourself for some of these risks that are likely to happen, including the drought situation that we touched on it a bit last week.
All right.
But I think our thank you, we know there are some things we always want to find to thank members of the public for, and maybe the state mechanism as well. So one, we're going to speak about the proposed, what is said to be the flyover on the Morris Bishop.
Yes, there's been a lot of talk about that since it came out in the news. Was it a week or two ago?
Right.
Your take on that?
We're going to speak about that a little bit. But we just want to highlight that that's something we're going to touch a bit on. I think also the bigger winner over the last couple of weeks has been the men and women in uniform, the RGPF.
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie, we want to say congratulations to you and your men. They've really stepped up to the plate. We insist that crime and violence is not out of control in Grenada, and we know that our law enforcement, they are on top of the game, and we are seeing them doing some things we thought they could have been doing before. Yeah. Being a bit more proactive, being at the spots.
And we're happy for that.
And where things happen, we see them at the sugar mill, we see them at various spots where things we believe could have happened before. We're seeing them there late nights. I want to say really hats off to you, congratulations. I think the shooters for all the suspected homicides that were committed within the last couple of weeks, all of them are behind bars now. Congrats. A lot of weapons have been confiscated, and I'm to get the stats from the police as to the number of weapons collected over the given period. and what's happening in terms of the progress of the amnesty.
Yeah.
So Commissioner McKenzie, I remember, again, from history, is always the man who's going to be innovative behind it, look out for people, look out for the issue. And just jokingly, remember when you did say, everybody run?
Yeah.
Right, there was an issue when he told everybody to run because, there was an issue that would have been of safety. And I think from early then, that's all early days as constables growing up.
All right.
His aspect for leadership and ensuring that people were led and taken to better places that, stem from this. I want to say kudos for your leadership of this process and continue, gentlemen and ladies, do what you're doing. We are proud of you and you have our support. And as much as I can give a voice, a physical hand, knowledge or otherwise to enhancing the capacity of the RGPF,
All right,
then we want to see that. One thing I want to see for the RGPF though is their resources being strengthened. I mentioned that before.
Yes.
Have better vehicles and other resources to do what they do. And I remember one time there were officers that could have been on reserve. And for many, many years, we could not get to a place where you have officers detail and you have a reserve unit. We need to go back to that, and I hope the administration is really looking at ensuring that the force reaches up to its complement, what they really need to have, its establishment directly, and you have a reserve unit that every time there are details, there are persons who are there for the cause that we need to have. Because there's the need when you will go beyond the normal function that people can see a quicker and more efficient. So let us go back to that. Yep. Reach your establishment and beyond.
All right, man. I too want to take your time with this and note high commendations to the force also for the response that we've been seeing lately, and in terms of the results that we're hearing from what took place lately. It cannot raise the morals of civilians, or we civilians also. We feel the protection that is out there for us, and the commendations once again goes out.
I wish to reassure people that Grenada is still one of the better places in the world, if not the best to be.
It is.
People have been calling, asking, should I come to Grenada where I'll be hearing about gun violence? I said, hey, come on, man. Book your ticket, come down. We are on top of the game. We will ensure that you have a safe and secure environment to enjoy pure spice of the Caribbean, Grenada.
There are countries who cannot speak like that for whatever reasons. They cannot speak like that. So we are able to, so we can encourage folks always visit these special. Not always, but every time you get a chance to be here. Sylvan, what's been taking place for the last couple of days?
Yes, so as I mentioned, we had the conversation of the flyover. Yeah. That was one thing that was, I don't know if flyover is the right thing, and I know Citizen Roller is also listening, whether we want to be flying over, whether we want to have an overpass, or whether we want to have a walkover. But I think the initiative is that of ensuring that people can...
The safety of pedestrians
can cross from one point to the other. We want to indicate or intimate here that careful consideration should be given to that as to the placement. We did hear, I think the CTO in Ministry of Works spoke of enhancing sidewalk in the area, and this is a lot. I mean, these are some things that we advocated from the AMC Foundation. Yes, that sidewalks should be and overpass should be installed. So we will be looking keenly on that. But as we look in terms of how we can make that better, we want to say that more road signs and markings should be there. In addition to that area, we have looked at it and believed that maybe the infrastructure that is embedded in that roundabout in the area, if it could be modified and you can shrink the side of that roundabout in that sugar mill area. It's really wide. It takes up quite a bit of space. So consideration should be given as to how you can modify that roundabout. As you go further northwest into the CKs, I understand there is expected to be an overpass. I think it should be reconsidered as to whether or not you really need that, or should the pedestrian cross be moved further northwest, meaning towards the mall section. Could you move the pedestrian cross further and the bus stop? Because what you find is that if people are crossing right as you break that roundabout, it slows down the traffic coming from the Morris Bishop Highway. Okay. And if people are assembling to catch the bus right at the edge there as well, it means that the traffic coming there has to be slowed down considerably. As we looked at the space technically, we believe that maybe the pedestrian cross could be pushed further. And you could bring the bus stop maybe further across so that you can have less congestion. It's not quite a lot of people at any one time that move in that area. So you may want to consider whether or not you need 3 on the Morris Bishop Highway and 1 further along maybe into the Calais area or otherwise, where more people, are put at risk in crossing, or whether that area that is already channeled to slow people down with a pedestrian cross, whether you can leave that back until you have resources to do that. Because with a pedestrian cross, it already technically slows motorists and pedestrians to cross in that area. On a highway, you cannot put pedestrian crossings.
So true. Because I was thinking about it myself, and I was wondering, would it be necessary for 3 on that area, on the Morris Bishop Highway? I thought 3 was a little too much. 2 may be adequate, but proper location is where that's what is to be considered. Locating them in the proper places.
And people don't have to, like they do with bus stops, you don't have to get off exactly where you walk. People don't like to walk. So even the area, I think, where the school is at, if you place one between the school and maybe the Limes, people go into the Limes area, the bus stop could be moved in one of those areas just as well. So you can stop and walk south, and you can stop and walk north on the side. So you cross and you walk down. So you don't necessarily need to stop exactly opposite the entrance to cross the road. So you stop further up and you walk down, or you stop further down and you walk up and get to where you have to go. So we can't put a pass to everywhere there is an entrance so that people can cross. It just doesn't make good sense.
And even though you spoke about the bus stop at the Rodney CK's area, I think some consideration can be done to that, as you mentioned. You understand. I just think the position that they've always have a way of slowing the traffic down for some reason, because most time buses will have to move there. You may have to wait for a bus to move off. And you said the pedestrian cross that is right there also. It's a bit cumbersome for as a bus stop and pedestrian cross in the same location. Something could be done to consider that. In terms of moving it out, I'm not sure where it could go. But some consideration on that area should be possible.
So as we are on pedestrian crossings and safety in general on road traffic, there's one thing that speaks to enhancing the safety even of the pedestrian and motorists is that of maintaining the markings on pedestrian cross and other signs. The paint deteriorates so quickly, and I know it is because they're not using the paint or the material that is supposed to be used.
It's like
across country, that is really, really, and outside of the city's areas itself, where people tend to want to drive a bit faster, that's the areas where you need those things to be more conspicuous, clearly marked, really bright from distance. When you have the distance that lead into them, saying people pedestrian crossing ahead, and the signs that indicate that there are crossings, in addition to the education that will let people know how to use these pedestrian crossings and the signs leading up into it. So my contribution here is, it doesn't take just the traffic department and the police or even the state mechanism. I think that corporate Grenada can come together. Business people can say, we do have 2 pedestrian crossing in our area. We will come together and we will source the right paint. And I don't think sometimes we need to always try to source it from far. We have Harris Paints, Ramdani's and Sisters and these places. I am absolutely sure if the consistency and the material that is required to mix the kind of paint,
they will make it available. They will make it available.
They can source it, and it can be produced right here in Grenada, and we can use it. It's a bit more expensive than the normal paint, but we have the resources. There's no if and but about it, but it's how to access it. Don't ask, don't get.
Another concern I always have, Sylvan, I don't know if you ever thought about it, the proper use of bus stops in Grenada is always a concern.
It is a big concern.
It is a big concern. Individual feel, if I'm living here and the bus stop is there, I should stand up in my house and not go to the bus stop to wait for a bus.
And that's a big safety factor. Now, that is not just on the bus drivers. It is a triune sort of a responsibility. One, the people who are driving, the people are commuting, like the passengers and so forth, they have a responsibility. And law enforcement. Because people get away with a lot of things because the law does not enforce, or the custodians do not enforce the law sufficiently. If drivers and so on know that they're not going to be prosecuted, a police is not going to pass anytime soon, or a police pass and they just turn a blind eye, they keep getting away, and it becomes a custom, become a norm, and that's what we see happening. I know countries not even far away from us that you dare not pick up somebody outside of a bus stop. I've been to Aruba many times, and I mean, that's one of the places. I missed the bus. I saw the bus right there. I didn't get there on time. The bus is not going to pick you up just a few yards from the bus stop because the penalty is so strong. So we believe that our penalties could be stronger, and our law enforcers need to be more forceful. They need to be able to do that so that we could be recultured. It's a long way in going, but the more we allow things, as we've been seeing in our program, We allow them to grow and to fester, and now we try to react to them.
Yeah.
Let's be more proactive. Let's be on the ball. Let's listen to the programs and the interventions and the ideas. There's no rank and there's no position in idea. It could come from anybody and anywhere. So when people make ideas or contributions, listen to them and let us implement them. And better ideas sometimes come from the lay people, the people you consider to have less knowledge or otherwise.
Yeah, because they see the issues all the time.
They see the issues.
Understand? And you may be the one that in so-called in authority. You may not be viewing them at all, the way that the regular individuals are seeing it.
Right. So in terms of some of the other things, I think we're running past.
Yeah, we're running our first break. Let's take it. But we come back. I want us to chit-chat a wee bit about the weather condition that we were expecting over the weekend.
Okay,
we chit-chat a wee bit about that when we come back, and then we get into the meat of our conversation after that.
Absolutely.
Stay with us, folks. We're coming right back. Stay with us. It's To The Point here, Classic Radio GBN TV.
Get ready, Grenada, for the 18th annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert. Hubbard's Legends in Concert, as we raise our hands and give thanks. On Saturday, October 26, 2024, Thanksgiving weekend, Grenada Trade Center, 7:30 p.m. Hubbard's Legends in Concert. Stay tuned to GBN for more.
Miss Faithlin's family drama continues with I Do by Urias Peters at Labucan Creative Center, Saturdays at 8 p.m., Sundays at 6 p.m., June 8th to 30th.
The laundry, always do a full load, save water.
This awareness initiative is part of activities under the Climate Resilient Water sector in Grenada. The project is funded by the Green Climate Fund, the German government, and the government of Grenada.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers, to The Point, Classic Radio and GBN TV. Welcome back, Mr. McIntyre. We're back once again here this morning. And our conversation, as we mentioned just before, as we continue the conversation this morning, as we mentioned just before the break, we're going to talk about the weather condition that was expected. I'm assuming individuals maybe have gotten themselves in a mood that, hey, we're going to get those showers as pretend it was going to be a tropical wave or some other stuff. We didn't see it happening. Give us an explanation why that happens at times.
Yeah. And I will give you my layman's explanation. I'm not a meteorologist technically, but I'll give you some consolation as to how that situation played out. First, I want to say, folks, don't beat up Met Office. Don't get your ropes and say you're going to put it in the neck and pull it up and you're going to hang them. Technically, we did say that the science of forecasting is not an easy one.
It's a prediction, huh?
There's a forecast and there's prediction, but meteorologists, they forecast. And they will tell you they do not do predictions.
Okay. So I'm mixing it up.
Yes, they do forecasting. Yes, prediction is different to forecasting, and that's what they do. Right. So do a forecast, and it's based on the scientific atmospheric conditions that exist. They do a forecasting as to things that they technically see. You predict again based on other things that something is likely to happen. But when you forecast, you use material, you use modelings and other things, and you can do a forecast as to what you're seeing that is likely to contribute to an end result. Right. And so the forecast over the weekend, as was shown, we were on track online to be affected by a tropical wave. And so on the information from them is that the atmospheric conditions changed drastically as it moved.
Okay.
And what happens then that people tend to give the negative reaction, I think, is our inability to bring the information or get it across to people and say things are not going to be as was previously forecasted.
Okay.
And they do not have any control over that because it can happen in midstream. And the other factor that is unexplained, we also see that Grenada is a praying nation. And it could have been as a result of our not being totally prepared for the situation. There were the people who went down on their knees and prayed genuinely and asked the Lord to intervene.
We needed that water.
Well, yeah, we do. We still, we still need the water. But I am saying that there is a supreme being that is responsible and knows what the negative impact could be. Yeah. And maybe there was a divine intervention, because I can tell you what could have been the effect of an area of disturbed weather and a tropical wave that should have brought gusty winds. As a matter of fact, there were aspects of above normal winds and some overcast condition and some precipitation that happened in aspects of Grenada. But because the atmospheric condition changed as it came through and got closer to us, the condensations was spread in smaller patches and did not come through our area as was previously forecast. That does not mean that rain is still not on the horizon. Traditionally, towards the ending of May, as we said in one of our program, you'd get a few torrents, you get some rain as you usher into the wet season, hurricane season. All right. So as from the meteorologists themselves, they're saying that they're seeing the condition, the humidity conditions have changed. It speaks to the amount of moisture that's in the atmosphere. You can feel it yourself, and you can also see nature how it is responding. Some areas, the evergreen trees, you can see the green increasing, and in some cases, you can tell because of the dew. And dew again speaks of moisture. Some green sprouts are coming through. That tells you that there's moisture and things are changing. Yes. However, we're still in the midst of a very serious, I think, Grenada's most severe dry season or dry spell. I think
it's what I have seen in a long time.
And that has taught us quite a bit, and it's teaching us a lot that we need to learn. That leads right into what we're going to speak about now, how you can prepare for that. Yeah. So the condition that we could have experienced, and I would say, we, from my assessment, were not quite prepared for the amount of rain that we could have gotten from a tropical wave. The reason being, when you have such an excessive, severe dry season, the earth expands so greatly. You have cracks and so on that appear on the surface. You do have, with the deposits from trees and other debris that move around, you have blockage of channels and other things that if you have certain torrents, one, it can lead to flooding in particular areas. The cracks can lead into the erosion and the moving of particular structures, the physical infrastructure. If you get too much rain at any one time, if you ever had a severe dry season, if you think about it, if you have excessive heat and then extreme cold, they are total opposite, and you get a reaction that sometimes ends in a negative result. And so that could have happened if we had such torrents heavy. We could have had flooding in areas that we did not expect them, and we could have had things moving away. But if you have the atmosphere cooling down gradually, the earth is beginning to pull itself back together. It gives additional time to remove and clear things that can block passage and channels, and it also gives people an opportunity to clear up. I think the advantage in what happened in terms of that alert, it caught you too, GT. You put your stuff back, you rushed into preparedness, you moved some of the things out of the way that could have become missiles. People started clearing around their houses and checking for places that it could have leaked and got into early readiness. And what NADMA has been advocated in terms of people having containers for storing water, etc., people started moving into that, because I can tell you, as we speak about how you can ready yourself for extreme condition like this, is that when you have a dry spell and your catchment areas and other things become compromised because of siltation and other things that get into them, when you have sudden torrents, it pulls sediments further into those catchment areas. And so what you have, there will be further valve control or otherwise, because it compromises the ability to transfer treated water down to the consumers. So even now that people say NASA is not delivering and distributing water, if you've had the rain that was going to come down, we were very likely going to have a setback.
Because now the different dams and so forth, they will be having,
right.
More sediments coming into them that was not necessary.
Correct.
You understand?
And when you have that happening, the turbidity in the water, meaning the color and so forth, and among other things like the dirt that would coming, it changes the color of the water, and people tend to believe it is not healthy or otherwise, and that will take a time before there is some the sediments settle.
Yeah.
And then the filtration process starts happening better, and then the water starts flowing because it is getting back to its normal flow, and the catchment areas are getting up to the standards of delivering the kind of water that we need. So there were a lot of disadvantage in having so early, immediately after an extreme dry spell. And this is why I think people were trying to warn people off and tell them what they should have expected. I am not too sure I heard Nawasa speak so much about the effects they could have had. But they understood just as well the impact negatively it would have had on the system and their ability to further distribute treated water.
Tell me, Sylvan, how could we have prepared for a situation like that happening and moving forward? We hear forecasting of that nature, the authorities, especially Nawasa and them, how could they have prepared themselves better for a situation of that nature? And even the regular consumers of the waters, how could we have prepared ourselves?
Yes. So we have two spells. We have a dry season and a wet season. And we have the wet season that we call the hurricane season, which starts in June, technically. And there's a whole series of preparedness that comes through. For dry spells and wet spells, your infrastructure physical would be affected.
Yeah.
And so your domestic issue also would be affected, and so they have to be given some consideration. The first consideration has to be in the construction. When you build, there are certain designs that need to go in, particular engineering designs for particular areas. That has to be first undertaken. A lot of time people build, and they just build a house, whether it is a 4x6, 2x4, or otherwise, have the sides up, have a foundation and a roof. And do not.
And we in the Caribbean always think, well, the dry season is always the better time for building for some reason or the other.
That's correct. Because, well, it's nice to build, things are clearer, it's easier, but the engineering design, a lot has to go into it in terms of even testing soil as to the soil type and the kind of structure that need to go into particular areas. Because there are some places, particularly in the south of the island and the low-lying areas, because of the plain itself, where in flat areas, you have more evaporation taking place. So you have the moisture remaining at a shorter period of time than in the higher lands. The higher lands, you'll attract the rainfall, it will be more moist, and so it will hold stronger together for a longer period of time. So when you're building in flat lands or coastlines, etc., there are different engineering designs that will be required for those areas. And sometimes people go into a rush into building those, and they do not really consider the best building type for particular area. So your preparedness for extreme conditions starts there with your engineering designs and construction. As you go for the environmental and climatic conditions and so on, and building to these standards as designed by the Housing Authority and the Physical Planning and Development, a lot of people really do not adhere to it. And so there are some things that are not, again, designed for some places. So, for instance, in particular parts of the city, there is the sewer lines for other buildings that people need to attach. And there are other places where the soakaway septic tank systems are being put. There are two setbacks or more to that situation. It has the environmental health condition that is associated to it, and then it has the other aspect that can lead to liquefaction and moving away of soils in some areas, because when you have soakaway systems, the moisture that runs from the septic tank into the soakaway and further goes into areas, it can lead into further landslides in particular area, and it can lead into other environmental conditions that are not conducive to that aspect of the development process. And this is why the physical planning and development would designate areas where some things. One of the things that are now embedded and is enforced very stringently is something called grease trap. In the past, people run things directly from your house into the lands or in the surface or otherwise, without having that aspect of the excess from your kitchens and your cooking areas, the excess oil and grease from meats and so on that come through. They just go through your drain, they block them up sometime, or they are deposited in areas that have negative impact on your own environment. So it is inbuilt within designs now, and they wouldn't approve your plans now if you do not embed aspects of having grease trap. Okay. So those grease traps are like small soak-away areas where the moisture comes in. Obviously, the grease would rise above the water.
Yes.
That could be skimmed out and taken off in proper places where they can either be recycled or dumped or burnt otherwise into other kinds of fuel to remove it. The whole aspect, the second thing here is, as we speak of engineering designs, what kinds of things that you would put into your own surroundings and you would keep that will help it to be ready. We've seen throughout the dry season the inability of people to access and to use water. Rain harvesting and the storage of water by the national authority and even by individual for domestic and commercial use is seriously lacking.
Yeah.
There are not a lot of people that have storage tanks. There are not a lot of people that have cisterns, and there are not a lot of people who use buckets and other things to keep water. And I was in the river last weekend. Not this one. I didn't get a chance. And I was just swimming and bathing and water from the Great River was just running uncontrolled or otherwise, and I bask in the beauty of nature in the river. That's the middle of the dry season. That was really cool and pretty. The point I'm making here is that all this water continues to run throughout the year.
Yes.
If we look at modifying the 100 years and 150 years catchment that the authority have, you realize that we're way behind time. Yeah. So all of these water that are running, that are sometimes not even used for irrigation purposes, we believe seriously that there could be further catchment areas. And here what? We continue to depend on gravity flow to service over 90% of the householders and commercial areas in Grenada.
Yeah. I mean, I've been hearing folks calling in and speaking of that a whole lot from time to time. Folks calling, and it's coming from regular citizens, who see these things that could be modified and prepared for further dry season down the line. That we would have the level of the problem.
And continuous pressure.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you look at what you get from the Great River, and somebody will tell me even from the St. Patrick, the north of the island, if you can create massive catchments and you can create those bigger pumps with huge lines that can move the water from one point, particularly if you take from St. Andrew, and they decide to pump into areas, other catchment coming on the east coast, that carries less hilly areas than the central part of the island. Yeah. If you have massive pump that throw these into other catchment areas, and they get up on higher points where you pump them up and you have other smaller catchments, you can use gravity flow from those points that go, and we can have water coming through. And it does not, and it will not considerably affect the other farmers who need other areas to irrigate, because once these areas are flow, you have this continuous flow. We have our rainforests that continue to produce and so forth. Then the spillovers can be used in other areas for people to do irrigations and other things.
So you say preparing is our biggest use. Is one of them. The level of preparedness is not adequate.
It is not adequate, and not preparedness for just the immediate or just the midterm. We have to start planning for very longer term. I don't think we projected that maybe Grenada would have developed so rapidly in terms of our housing stock.
I would agree with you on that.
And our commercial housing areas for the tourist industry, etc.
Yeah. We're still like 30 or 40 years behind. So we could sometimes.
You think it's that short?
Yeah.
It's 30 or 40 or more? Or 50?
You think about 50? We're 50 years behind still in terms of our thinking.
Because if the catchment areas that were built before, they were done 100 plus years ago.
I mean, they may have outlived their usefulness.
Maybe.
Yeah. Sylvan, we do for a break. We're coming back. I've been seeing we getting lots of calls, lots of comments. We're going to grab some of them when we come back.
And then we go back into some further.
And we go back in some further conversation. Stay with us, folks. To the point. Classic Radio, GBN TV. We'll be right back. Don't touch it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come for Grenada to laugh again. Heritage Theatre presents Spice Laugh Comedy Bash 2024. Saturday, June 22nd and Sunday, 23rd June at the Trade Center in Grandance. And on Sunday, 30th June at the Deluxe Cinema in Grenville. Showtime, 7 p.m. every time. Featuring some of Grenada's best ambassadors of comedy. Robert White, Dillion Walters, Kareem Alexis, Dale Bowler, and other outstanding comedic performances. All coming to knock you off your seats with laughter. Get your tickets now. Bring out the entire family. Tickets are $60 and available at Mitchell's Pharmacy in Grandance, Gittins Health and Wellness at all outlets, Art and Soul Bookstore, Spiceland Mall, 3B's Shoe Store, downtown St. George's, Calico Supermarket, Grenville and Sutairs, St. David's Pharmacy, and Go to Fet. It's time for Spice Laugh Comedy Bash 2024.
filter, ha? कम झाले filter. आजी.
I want to control your anger. There's a way to feel better. That's one thing to remember. No matter where you are, you can be a star. Stop and take a deep breath and relax yourself. Take another deep breath and relax it, and relax it. Eliminate violence.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. It's To The Point here for today, Monday. Of course, myself and Mr. Sylvan McIntyre were here this morning. And previous conversation dealt a whole lot in terms of preparedness. How prepared are we for the seasonal changes that we see now, climate change and everything else that intervenes in our way of life. We spoke a whole lot about the traffic situation and our open conversation that we do have. We do have much more to say in terms of preparedness move along. Let's entertain our caller, and then we continue with our conversation this morning. I guess we lost that caller there. 435-2041, 435-2041. You have the option of calling via the WhatsApp also, or Sylvan, we could probably continue with our conversation as we do our radio call, and I'm seeing one is coming. Let's entertain this one. Caller, welcome, good morning.
Yeah, morning, morning GT and morning Mr. McIntyre. Just two quick questions. One is that, Mr. McIntyre, you were around when after Hurricane Ivan, and we had a mantra, build back better. Do you think that we have really stuck to that? And is it a bit sometimes worrying that in spite of all the talk, we have not done much? And could you also explain to people the difference between climate and weather? Because I think people confusing it a bit. Maybe it'd be good, because as with anything else, sometimes you have to refresh people's understanding of certain important topics. So can you do that for me? First of all, the issue of, have we been building back better in terms of preparing for any eventuality? And secondly, can you clarify climate and weather for us? Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning.
Okay, great. So the first aspect of the question is really easy to answer. We have built back better.
Yeah.
I'm not even having to go into very technical details onto that. In terms of weather and climate, yes, there is a marked difference between that, but I would prefer for the meteorologists for fear of creating further confusion in people's mind. But there's a big difference between weather and climate.
All right.
Simply, there's one aspect that speaks to particular conditions, and the other speaks on general conditions. Weather speaks, it has the meteorological and hydrometeorological, and climate speaks, it encompasses all of weather and all of the other conditions that are technically involved, that deals with Earth and the atmosphere.
All right. And you don't want to get too deep into that.
You don't want to get too deep into that.
You said you don't want to get into the confusion of it.
People's mind.
All right. Let's take another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Yes, Sam. Good morning to you, GT. And how are you today?
Not too bad, sir. We're doing pretty well.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. McIntyre. I'll tell you so much to talk about. Mr. McIntyre, may I ask you this question? Are you for sale?
Yeah.
I'll tell you something. We would like to have that class of resource. I would like to have that class of resource in my area. You talk about the Great River, so that's St. Andrews. But if you could stretch one leg down, thank you very much, sir. I'll tell you something. Don't make an excuse for our planners. Yeah? Now, what I say is not a lot of my ideas, too. But I'll tell you something. That's where the problem is. We do not plan. And I won't say we do not plan, but we plan on the short, very short term, 1-inch planning. We should plan for, I believe in concept, I believe in imagination. We're supposed to be planning for 10, 15, and 20, 30 years ahead of where we are. So it's not true to say that these situations come sudden on our planners. No, that's what you are there for, planning, management, yeah, and planning. Concept, planning, and execution in the order of development. And if you're going to stay in planning forever, then you will not be able to do anything. And that's where we are. We continue to plan and plan and plan and plan and never get a chance to do anything whilst cost is rising beyond our ability to do what we plan to do. And so that's where we are. So let them know exactly that. Don't make an excuse for them. We are not good on planning. From the top to the bottom, we are not good there. If we are good on planning, we would not have been here because there is too much rivers in this place for us to be having problems with water. Many, many other areas in terms of creating jobs, expanding the economy. I listened to a program, the Bob Report with Mr. Ambrose Philip and a few other chaps there, and it's the same thing. We are lacking in terms of managerial resource, leadership resource, and that's what is causing all the problems to us. Yeah? Thank you, son. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome. Caller via WhatsApp. You're welcome.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you. Go right ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. McIntyre, and thank you so much, Mr. GT. With regard to the sidewalks and so on, I agree that we need more sidewalks. Because sometimes, just the way our traffic flows, if you're heading from south to north, you're on the western side. That's where the bus stops are. And if you're heading on the from north to south, you are on the east side. Now, I take for example where Sea Breeze is located. That's the hotel opposite the tennis court in Grand Anse. There's a bus stop right opposite that. But if you're coming from south going north and you get off there, it's very hard to find a safe place to cross. The side of the pedestrian crossing is a bit further north. So if you walk up, go north and you cross, but then there's no place to walk on that side of the street. You're actually in the drain. And so you actually, based on where, if you're going to heading for the cemetery way by the tennis court, you're fine. But if you're going to the side that Sea Breeze on, there's a problem. So the side of the pedestrian crossing, you have to cross in the middle of the street, so to speak, where there is no pedestrian crossing, and you have to basically negotiate the traffic and depend on the goodwill of the drivers to stop, and that is very risky. So I think it's not just having sidewalks. I agree with you. I mean, it's not just having pedestrian crossing, and I think we have to do a better job with the sidewalks, because it's fine to when you get off on the bus stop to walk to where you're going, but if you're going on the side where the bus stop is, that's fine. But if you're crossing the other side, that's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. I think we had a little bit of difficulty hearing the caller. I think he was actually using what you call a Bluetooth device, and sometimes that usually bring the conversation. Let's take another caller, and we get more into our conversation. We come back, right? Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Good morning to you. Now, gentlemen, I think, number one, another attempt should be made to have our own constitution. In my opinion, we too British, Queen face on the money, and lots of other things. And as a result, you can encourage foreign investors to come in and set up factories. There are a lot of local things we have here. They could have factories and for that. Hello? Yes, and there's quite a lot of other things that I think that we can do. This is just a perfect waste of time. I don't intend to be insulted, but this is how I am seeing it. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Can we move on? We still have a whole lot to talk in.
We still have quite a lot
in terms of preparedness, and how we proceed in terms of our mindset as we move forward into the future.
So going forward, I am sure as we hit June 1st, which is the hurricane season, there'll be lots and lots more preparedness information coming across.
Yes.
Because this year we are facing what is called a hyperactive season.
Yeah.
And we've not had it before. We've had very active, overactive, extreme active.
But we have hyperactive.
And this year they've declared a hyperactive season. And the early indication of a tropical wave happening or coming across as early before the hurricane season was even declared is an indication as to the amount of system that we're likely to have. And the mid-average is just about 24 of those systems that are likely to be generated. Yeah. And if you have 13 plus of these systems that are likely to become storms or hurricanes, it tells you quite a bit.
Yeah.
And if you have about 50% of those that are expected to become major hurricanes, that's hurricanes producing winds of in excess of 110 miles per hour. That's for concern.
Yes.
But the general thing here is not just about hurricane readiness or being in the hurricane season, but as we're coming out of a dry season, there are quite a number of things we can do for national readiness and individual readiness. But I think generally people tend to look towards what the national system has to offer before they can kick in their own individual levels of preparedness. We maintain that if families and individuals start taking their own measures in ensuring that, one, you look at where you live, the hazards that you're likely to be exposed to. If you're going to be in a flat area, you're going to flood. So what do you do to keep your structures and your things from getting damaged? If you live in a high area where the winds you'll be more exposed to the winds, your roof structures will become more vulnerable. So what that is saying is that for conditions where you're expecting wind and moisture to take place, like rain, you expect it to have, like we did not have before the impact of hurricane, a lot of the damage was roof damage. And what we found is that people build the rectangles or the squares and you put windows and so on them, and the foundation is not well built and the structure is not well attached to the foundation. A good example of wooden structure that are less resilient to wind but more resilient to like earthquakes, etc. An example of a good wooden structure came after Hurricane Janet.
Yes.
In 1955.
As we call those Janet houses.
And we call them Janet houses. And I think the misunderstanding, and as I will explain to people last week, the Janet houses are not houses that were there before Janet.
No.
They were houses that were donated after Janet. And the intent then was to give an indication as to what a wooden structure should be like that would be more resilient to adverse conditions. Albeit that wooden structures are not totally resilient to those kind of structures, hazards like hurricanes.
Yeah.
Because regardless of what boathouse you build, if you have a category 3 profile go up,
it wouldn't withstand.
It's going to beat up. But if one of those is going to be damaged, there's something that you call, is like insurance. You have acceptable risk. There are some risks you have to accept, and there are some things you need to do. The basic in ensuring that your structure, as I mentioned, is foundation. So if you look at those pillars that were built for the giant houses, they had a particular angle on them.
Yeah, they were kind of angle and shape. Yes, I can remember that.
They're like the pyramid type stuff. Is
something,
it like
something of that nature?
Yeah, the wider at the base and narrow at the top. And so then you had bolts in at the center that locked the runners that formed the flooring.
Yes.
And they were locked, they were bolted down. And as you go up the structures, you would have included reinforcement with what you call the rafter and beam straps.
Yes.
So if you have a wooden structure, if they are held together, they become more resilient. And even if they are rooted off their foundation, they stay together. We've seen a lot of houses or structures where they were moved during storms or hurricane, they stayed together. They rolled over, the topple and so forth, but the structure stayed together. For Hurricane Ivan and Emily, a lot of our roof went because, one, they were not constructed properly. The wooden houses did not have rafter straps to hold them, and the concrete structures, the ring beams were not well set. And so the rafters, people, what they did, they put blocks, they put the rafters, and then they put blocks of pieces of concrete between them, and then they plaster it off. We've seen that many times. In addition to that, they use like smaller wood, like 2x4s and other things that are not well suited for bigger structures to hold them. Right, the 2x6 and sometimes the 1x12 structures and so forth are sometimes or the 2x12 are the structures that sometimes they are often used as stronger wooden structures. Now, when these have been built, there is the ring beam has to be tied together and locked all those structures. So when you have a movement, whether it is hurricane or whether it is an earthquake, that structure should stay together. Unless there is some weakness that is found in between, they should stay together. But there are some builders and so forth that, for reason of making most of it, they do not do some of the things that should be done. You'll see some builder that they would run like a concrete steel that goes and locked all the rafters all the way through, and they would cast. The ring beam is supposed to be a ring. It must be continuous. So it must not be broken, because you don't drop some concrete now and come back and drop some the next day or days after, because concrete don't join.
Yes.
So with the ring beam and with deckings, they must be continuous. They must be done in one straight for maximum strength. And a lot of times people do not go into those. And the simple things that happen for the people who are not able to inspect and look at the condition, they are exposed and they lose their structures.
And most time they leave it up to the constructor or the contractor, whoever it is.
That's correct. So as we get into the hurricane season, where we are going to see more rain, stronger wind impact, and so forth, there will be water shortage, there will be electricity outage, and there sometimes will be communication disruption. And we are going to speak on how you can better prepare, what things you need to have to be able to stay in touch for those. We take
a caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome. Caller, good morning.
Good morning. How are you today, sir?
Not too bad. Not bad at all. Go right ahead, please.
Okay. Talking about the highway where they're putting up the thing, I want to ask Mr. McIntyre. Grenadians is a set of people, they don't want to listen. How are you going to get them to use those things? I know they're going to walk in the road still. They won't want to use it. They'll walk in the road. They will find a way. Look, the bus stops. They're not using bus stops. You will find by Sugar Mill. Bus by Sugar Mill to the Limes is sometimes about 4 bus stops, because one stop here, one stop there, and one stop again. You know? So they either they have to talk to the people to get them to learn about the thing, or they have to start doing what they do in America, some of the places. They charge them jaywalking. If you don't use it, they charge you for jaywalking. When I find what the government now is supposed to do, if we go on to think, put bus stops, put back new bus stops, and make people use the bus stops. Because I find with the traffic now, it's way higher. Because people just doing their own thing and they don't care about the person behind, especially the buses. It's up in the middle of the road and they don't care about nobody else after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution. Important point.
Yeah, the caller's contribution. I mean,
it's a little bit humorous, but
yeah, and it's loaded.
It's relevant anyway.
No, man, it's really loaded, and it gives a lot for consideration.
All right. Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Mr. McIntyre and you. You know, what I think that really upset about in Grenada is about the use of time. People really take it for granted that we could do anything, anytime, and get away with it. And it ain't only happening in the public sector, it happening into the private sector too. So for us to prepare for weather and so forth, we must consider time as money. My brother, I have been to several different departments. They're telling you they have something for 8 o'clock. Sometimes at 8:30, you see they plugging in things, and you have to wait. Let me give a typical example. How about announce they have sales starting 8 o'clock this morning? I went there to see what the people have. Minutes to 9, they're still plugging in like a gadget in order to really deal with customers. And put on top of it, they are advertising 85%, and it's only 30% they're getting discount. No, you see, what I'm saying is that our people have to change for things to work well. If half an hour on your farm, imagine planting cabbage. Imagine they take away that and you could plant about 150 cabbage in half an hour. If you multiply that by $3 for a cabbage, you know how much you're losing? People have to consider those things serious. And that's how the country go develop. If we're wasting time on everything, we can't go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. A little off subject matter, but
yeah, but it's
relevant.
different. But Gigi, it's part of the conversation we were having off air in terms of time consciousness and time management.
So true.
You know how people respect time and how important time really is.
Yeah.
And you were saying in preparedness for what was supposed to have been the inclement weather over the weekend.
Yeah.
You use the time. You recalibrated. You readjusted because that was of the essence.
That was of the essence.
You know what you needed to do certainly within certain time.
All right.
And the caller is really making some good point. But it's a whole reculturing, re-educating process, and it starts with the family units.
Yeah.
If you want to have a generation that will be time conscious, would be law-abiding, and otherwise it has to start with the family.
And it takes your personal stuff also. Sometimes you see we may blame the business, but it's the employees of themselves also. Working with time. And if you say, well, we're going to have an event coming up at 9 o'clock, you should not be preparing to do it at 9 o'clock. You understand?
Yes.
Prepared should start since 8:30, and at 9 o'clock the event should start on time.
So 2 things, maybe 3. The family units, you start that aspect of the information and education process in your own family. And then it goes into our institutions. If school has to be called by a particular time and subject matter has to be dealt at a particular time, and I think the schools they are trying to enforce it to a large extent where students have been penalized if they did not come on time. But the teachers themselves, they would get into a classroom when they have to start their subjects. They don't even start it on time.
Yeah.
And so the other angle of it is that we develop a culture of what I call disrespect. Because if you invite me to something, and when I get there, you're just pulling plugs and pulling things and organizing, I feel that is a disrespect. You don't recognize, you don't appreciate my time and my contribution or what I denied myself of to come to your event. If we respect each other and say, well, you know what, the people who are expected to come here, they would have readjusted themselves, left things up. I'm one of those persons that would program my stuff. If you tell me you want 7 things done, I would accept them, but I would have to put time to them. And this is why every time I come here, or GT before I come, if I'm going to be late, I would call and tell you there's another event that is happening. It's like it is going to run over time.
Yes.
And so I give you a thumbs up to tell you this is where we're going to run into.
Oh, I don't sit and just wait.
And don't just sit and wait me, expecting me to come and wondering what's going on.
All right.
And those kind of things, I think, it's a reculturing, but there has to be somewhere where it has to restart.
Let's take a final caller because we're almost strapped for time already. Let's take a final caller for the morning.
Hello.
Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Good morning. Mr. McIntyre, I don't know if you have self-discipline. I don't know. So I'm not commenting on you. But the very salient feature in everything about the aspect of life is self-discipline. Anything you're doing, you have to be self-disciplined. You as a parent have to be self-disciplined. You have to know what you're doing. You must live up to the expectation of your children. Your children take pattern from you. So if you are ill-disciplined, you expect your children to be ill-disciplined. If you have a firm and you are not managing the firm formally, then you would have problems. Everybody in Grenada Valley, I know. This is the problem. Too many of us know too much different things because sometimes I listen to pronunciation of words, despite the fact that pronunciation varies from place to place. I listen to the construction of sentences or even paragraph. I could give you an example. Even if it happens with learned men or learned women on the radio stations that broadcast things to the world, sometimes I mark them down so I could quote. I could call who say, but normally, they would expose me and say, my phone make it nice. But you don't normally do it because they cannot handle me. This is what is happening in the world. Everybody want to be me first, me second, me third. But they're not living up to the laws. The laws that are important. You have laws. You're supposed to have laws in your home. You're supposed to have laws, extended laws for the country. That's what I have to say. I have much more to say. We have a problem in Grenada. Everybody is a little God.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution this morning, as always. So we got to take a wrap for today?
We have to. Yes, duty calls as well and programming calls.
Yeah.
I just want to say it has been my pleasure one more time, but as we roll out from the dry season into the rainy season, hurricane season, please, Grenada, do not take it for granted. It doesn't take all 24 systems to destroy or to damage Grenada or to set Grenada back. It just takes one aspect of it, and we could be set back for a very long time.
Right.
But the responsibility for every one of us for road safety and for safety of our families and home, it starts with every individual. So if we take small bits of the responsibility, then we can be better. For those of you who've been making efforts to improve your driving on the road, and those of you who've had your house debris, building construction material, and that cuts on our road space, and those of you who are cleaning our roadsides and making them clear so people could use them, and for the administration who is looking at expanding on sidewalks and overpass, etc., I want to say thank you, and let us work to build a better and safer Grenada for every one of us.
All right. Mr. McIntyre, once again, thank you for being on the program this morning. Next week, once everything permits, we will be here again.
We'll be back.
All right. To our listeners and viewers, thank you once again for being with us this morning. Join us again for another edition of To The Point. That's why I say goodbye for today's edition.